Good morning. Today I'm going to give a short talk about the Agama. I put the names in like this, the three Dhamma transmissions of Agamas. Once we talking about the teaching of the Buddha, the primary resources that are divided into two schools. One is the Pali Nikaya, and the second is the schools from the translate into Chinese called Agama. So Agamas, we have 4 Agamas, and the Pali Nikaya, we have 5 Nikayas. Right now, I'm going to sharing the core teaching of Agamas, how to use it to overcome the suffering and stress in this very life, in his brief teaching. So if someone who want to practice according to the Dhamma and determined to overcome the stress and suffering, the transcend of this very life is very important, that you need to have a higher perspective and the life deeper awakening for yourself. Where you can get that kind of advanced value from is from the teaching or from the sutras written down by Buddhism. So the book of Buddhism is called sutras. A lot of word writing there. Let you who is more sharpening mind and who see clearly into the words writing in the sutras, understood is according to the reality of the teaching. For example, the writing there is talking about the world destruction, talking about the living beings aging, illness, or decay, dying. Have all this teaching there come to a deep realize accordingly to the truth. For an example, the unclear mind situations, or right now we see the COVID still going on, the war, dark clouds. People are in a state of anxiety, suspicious, and troubles. All these watching into this real world of your sensual contact compared to the teaching of the sutra. It has certain awakening to your own life. Then you can use these three transcendence of the Agama, apply to your own practice. First is reviews of flows of birth and death, pointing to unwholesome. The second is reviews to the virtues of liberation, pointing to wholesome or virtue. The third one is just nothing to review, means the Dhamma seals impermanent, stress, not self, emptiness. All these come to your mind, that make sure that you know the truth or the Dhamma. The Dhamma for applying into practice is how to mindful and concentrate on ways of rising and ceasing, no matter exterior contact or mental contact. You not let the rising and ceasing patterns stuck in your mind or become attachments of your mind, feeling, body attachment, or the Dharma attachment. If you're not there, that means you are nothing to review. This is profound meaning in the third. Right now, I'm going to say a little bit more details of number 1 and number 2. So unwholesome need to be purified and wholesome need to attack place. Put it into the Dhamma learning and how to make it into practice skills. I use this terminology to say that is 5 kinds of mental stabilizations in meditation. So that is our mind obstacle: greed, ill will, ignorance, discursive thought, equanimity, and others. So you see the practice for greed in mind is very deep and bottoms of the samsara. We practice this is try to be purify our 6 sense contact and more is how we can overcome the desire of sexual and other things that bother our mind and bring the life into the circles of stress and suffer. Especially who practice and determined to become a monastic, he need to restrain senses, faculties, and about his own mental stability. The second, that we have more to go. The antidote for the ill will or anger, hatred, using practicing of loving kindness and compassion is directly purified this kind of mental suffering. It just offers things of great, if great that you look for and hunger, if you cannot satisfy it, then it might turn into ill will, anger and hatred, complaint, resentment, that kind of negative mental activity. So you can use loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity for the practice. Once we practice more and more profound into this realization, then you will easy to forget and you will forgive others to make yourself opposed to each other. This is how the purification is working. Ignorance. The third ignorance not means you are knowing nothing. It means you have the wrong view and you decide wrong understanding, but you think it is right understanding. This is called ignorance. So the causality teaching or the Nidana teaching in Buddhism, that is the only very unique teaching about cause and effect and condition. Once we know more about cause and effect in the material side, in the biophysics side, and in the mental side, then you will become more wise to the reality of the phenomena of these three: exterior, physics, and mental. So you can more precisely knowing what is going on in the condition. You won't put your mind into delusion or put your life into so-called dreaming. You will be more practically know how to apply yourself, overcome the problem by IQ. I said by very wise knowing and determined. The fourth is discursive thought. Means that in the life itself, we have a lot of monkey mind, or more in the daydream, that a lot of thinking pattern in the mind. It's a very excited energy. The mind keep thinking. We call that monkey mind. Keep remembering means he grabbed his memory and processing there all the time. In this situation, practicing mindfulness of breathing or anapanasati is very important. In the teachings of anapanasati, talking about 16 excellent practice, step by step, how you can calm down the mind, make the mind more still and stability, so that the mind, once it's calmed down, and unshaking, strong and energetic, then it is concentrate. Once mind is concentrate, then it's easy to observe things carefully and observing and penetrating the things that make your mind stressed. A lot of trainings can be found in this so-called anapanasati or the breathing training. Use breathing trainings not only for the anapanasati, but connected with the fourth foundation of mindfulness too. So for very generous purpose, we call that cultivate the mindfulness of the Buddha. Remember the liberation of the Buddha who attained the Nibbana to become Buddha, fully enlightened, fully awakened, and all his virtue, his training, and his wisdom is our own guidance resources, guidance skill, and the aim of our life for practice, to practice. So if we can remembering all the time and mindful to the life of the Buddha itself, become an example for us, then they will bring you a lot of enthusiastic and energy to practice. So always remember an example to your life success. This is very important. For me, comparing to all the success people in the world, if spiritual success as a mankind who have a lot of noble character and identities that in one man, I will choosing the Buddha himself as a good example to aim my life, walking this path, follow him. So the recollections of the Buddha himself become very important to my life. And I will recommend the practitioner, especially the advanced practitioner, always when you have a desire to reading some book in a short time, or remind yourself, don't forget some things very important. Please read the Buddha's life again and again. Read something according to his short teaching in the record in Buddhism of Agama or Nikaya's teaching is very important, very unique for Buddhist spiritual training. One more that can be sharing is called focusing on cultivate the mindfulness of worldly discrimination. This become a common practice who is not too wise and want to make his life more wise and gain wisdom is analyze something that of reality. Analyze some things of his own life is starting from analyze the embodies of this very body. They are all the elements active there. If you can contemplate of it, you can know what is the fire element, what is the water element, what is the earth element, and what is the air element, what is the empty element, and what is the consciousness in this very life itself. Then you will know it. It is only a compound together elements to form the life itself. So you cannot control it. You cannot master anything bodily or mentally. It is the condition by rising and ceasing of its own nature. Once you profoundly observe and contemplate what you have in this very life, body and mind, then you will enlighten and you will awakening how to make your life mindfully to freedom and mindfully to detachment. This is how this practicing of mindfulness of worldly discrimination is very important too. So 5 of them or 6 of them is what the Agama teachings very unique way to show. You can choose one according to your own life problem or your own life afflictions that are very strong, pop up similar with the teaching, then put it into training. It always brings you direct beneficial. One more thing to go before I end the talk. So here is 2 things need to fulfill. And someone turned his life from a common disciple come to become a noble person or a noble character in Buddhism. So practice Buddhism or practice the Dhamma, you can beneficial from 3. One is tolerance that indulges enmities and injury. Or what I want to say is, once we practice to fulfill our meditations, concentration and insight, if you come to this level that attaining to the Dhamma body, means you come to the first fruit according to the practice of the path, then you will rising that kind of energy or the power. What is the power? The power of tolerance or the powers of a balance. You can bear, indulge lots of stress, especially from resentment and from harm that from the exterior bring to the mind and body stress or suffer. That will be if someone that break to his 3 kinds of attachment, self-view, clinging to virtue and rituals, and skeptical doubt. These 3 breaking, we call that you're entering into the Dhamma body. Strings entry is the flute. Secondly, if he practice more and profound into the trainings of what we mentioned about the 5 kinds of practice that just now explained a little bit of that mental stabilizations of meditation training, then you will continue process reducing the hatred and greed. Then we come to the second, endurance of various sufferings. Means you try to be thinner of your hatred, thinner of your greed, and the bodily view or the self-view, the clingings of ritual and clinging to all the risks will be slowly move to an end. Especially skeptical and doubt never happen there. You always have the firm determination to the Dhamma. You have an unshakable mind of the training. Then this will be work for a deep and unshakable experience of selflessness and impermanence and dissatisfaction in the second. So from this training, the sutra said that Sakadagami and Anagami is the second flute. The third flute will be fulfilled and training in here. So that is very essentially the same of the first, but even restricted and clearer brings a significant reductions in attachment and aversion and suffering that accompanies the 3 states of mind. So these states of mind that sometimes we can even that will profound your meditation state experience and come to the fruit of overcome the desire realm and come to the form realm and formless realm understanding. So for me, I am in the desire realms, 6 sense contact, man and woman sex desire, pardoning the mind a lot in the practice. If you can practice, come to the second endurance of various 5 suffering, means you will from the first tolerance of desire realm, come to the second, means form and formless realm. Your meditation practice will bring you higher into overcome the desire realm. This is very, very encourage me to train in the Dhamma practice. So 9 abiding minds is applied to number 1. And the 9 sequential concentration means 4 states of jhana and another 4 states of the formless jhana is applying into the second. And the third one, we call that arahantship. So from arahantship, It's a very complete, means you complete in the trainings of the Dhamma. Penetrate to the Dhamma, so you get the Dhamma patience enough for every phenomenon. So Dhamma is the last thing we need to connect it in order that to overcome what we call that the overcomes of the attachment to formless realm, attachment to form realm, attachment to the self-conceit, and have the ignorance still become the bottom of the afflictions. All this been purified, you come to the end of the samsara, end this samsara, abandons all factors in this very life, or abandons samsara in this very life. This is the goal of Agama teachings want to show us. Little bit talk back about the second. If we come to the second, then a lot of feelings of suffering, a lot of feelings of unsatisfaction come to your mind. It's not feeling that way. It becomes intolerance, means you bear all this stress will increasingly rising into advance. So feeling totally been purified, feeling totally become master. So they have two kinds of feeling in four Satipatthana practice. One is the feelings of the body and material side. One is the feeling of the mental and the Dhamma side. So from here, the second intolerance of various suffering, mostly talking is the mental side. You are practicing and you are observing. So the mental side have a lot of feeling that is joyful feeling in this state, is the very fine attachment into the spiritual life that need to be overcome. So here is how very important for us to work for this deep joy and happiness still need to purify, because all this what we think is stabilized is permanence of feeling that we attach to, maybe come to the last moment of the life before it decay, before he turning the samsara. We don't see the impermanence. We don't see the disfactoriness is hanging there. So the second intolerance is very important for someone who already gained meditation state, who already have a lot of advanced training in Buddhism, who already cultivate the wholesome and virtual, need to work wholeheartedly and mindfully in the second intolerance of various suffering. That suffering is not mean into the stress suffering. It means of the happiness, of joy of the spiritual life that you think you can rely, you think you can depend on that. Thank you.